Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
Sure, and I've got a little bit of this in the deck, but my name's Janet Miller, and I'm the CEO of Colliers International Nashville, which is a large commercial real estate services brokerage company here in town. It is so fun to be here today, and I woke up this morning and was really excited about the day, and there's really two reasons. One is I love to talk about leadership. I can talk about leadership all day long, so this is really fun. And the second reason is the next slide. And we're talking a lot about mentorship and kind of putting a hand behind us. And if you'll go to the next slide, I want to show you a picture of the young lady who actually put this slide deck together. This is Claire Henderson. She is a high school senior, and she was in the office with her mom, who was our marketing manager, last week. And we just said, why don't you put this presentation together? Give it a shot. So what you're seeing today is 100% the work of Claire Henderson. And to me is a great example of, let's just give people a shot at things and let them succeed. So I was really happy with it and wanted to thank Danielle and Claire for that. A little bit more about who I am. So I am CEO of a very large commercial real estate company. We are a publicly traded international company, and it is a very male-dominated industry. I think there are 4 women running offices now, out of about 150 in the U.S. So very male-dominated. My prior life was running economic development for the Nashville Chamber of Commerce. So have had a lot of experience in leadership and managing people over the years. I'm very, very deeply involved in the community. I chair the board for the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. I'm vice chair for the Transit Authority. So I've kind of really been dedicated to just this community. And I'm a wife, I'm a dog mom, a hiker, a swimmer, a mahjong player, and a world traveler. So that's a little bit about my background. And they asked me to pull together 5 leadership themes that I have learned through my career. And I just picked out things that really resonated deeply with me and tips that have worked in managing teams and leading teams. So we'll just plunge right in with theme number 1. And that theme, if you will go to the next slide, is do the work to understand who you really are and then own it. And my mom, who when she was 93, gave me one of the best compliments I could have received in my life. She looked at me and she said, "You have gotten very good at being you in your adult life." And it took me a long time to figure it out. In my 20s, wasn't quite sure who I was. I probably had aspirations that weren't authentic. And the best analogy I can give you, if you'll go to the next slide, is this example. So I grew up and Breakfast at Tiffany's was my favorite movie. Loved it. I was obsessed with Audrey Hepburn. And if you think about Audrey Hepburn, she is beautiful, razor thin, the epitome of class and grace and poise and perfection. And growing up, that is who I aspired to be. I thought that is what I want to be in my life. But the truth is, I didn't come with that gene pool. I really didn't. And if I've observed myself over the years, I seem to fall more into the Lucille Ball category. My natural, authentic self is much more like Lucy stomping in the vat of grapes that we've all seen. I'm quick-witted. I'm expressive. I have a goofy streak. I'm authentic. And being a Lucille Ball type is fantastic. She was one of the most successful women in Hollywood. She was the first owner of a production studio. She was smart as a whip, but she's not that grace and poise that we think of with Audrey Hepburn. So it's just an example of how learning kind of where you fall in the world. And I've really honed my authentic sense of who I am. And very rarely do I question it. I own it. And I think it's something that resonates with people when you really are in touch with who you are authentically are. So if you'll go to the next slide. So the key to all this is figuring out, whatever age that you can, who you are deep down in your authentic soul. And then when you get there, you just flat own it. That is the thing that I have learned. People crave connection with people who are authentic and they feel like they are real. So if you can do the work to get to that place, you will attract people into your life. You will attract clients to your company. You will attract friends, and you will attract soulmates. So there's a lesson around authenticity that I think is really important. And I'll end this theme under a statement. If you'll go to the next slide, there's a lot of interesting research out there on how men are more likely to apply for positions that they are only modestly qualified for. So if there's a checklist of 10 qualifications for a job posting, many men will say, well, I'm going to apply for it. I meet two of them and I'm great. I'm going to go do it. Women, on the other hand, apply to positions often where they feel like they need to meet all of the job qualifications. So question themselves much more. And this is a great quote about it that just to me is so enlightening, which is the overlap between people who feel confident and who are actually competent is a mere 9%. So in the world, if you use the analogy of the job hunters, probably 10%, 9% of the people who apply for a job are going to be totally competent in all the competencies. It's the people who feel confident and, to me, also curious and lifelong learners that get the jobs. So to me, this says, know who you are, own it, and don't be afraid to just go after things, and don't think you have to check every box and be totally competent to move ahead in life. You got to take a little bit of risk. So let's move on to theme number 2. And this is the next slide. And this is something that's just very true to who I am. And it's, I will take EQ over IQ any day. And, we learn early in our careers, particularly when you're first coming out of school, that everything's about what degree do you have? What are your technical abilities? What is your deep competency in whatever is emphasized in a job description or what you came out of school with? EQ is a whole different thing. It is your ability to empathize, to relate, to understand, to stand in somebody else's shoes, and to genuinely other people. So what I've learned in my career is there isn't a soul on this planet that doesn't want to be seen and understood. And that is what EQ is all about. And I'll give you a little story. When I came to Colliers, I managed 40 commercial real estate brokers. And I would go into client presentations with them when I first started. And these are sales people. And I observed that many people that I managed would go into these meetings and just throw up data all over the client, right? It was just, let me show you how smart I am, and not take the time to make a personal connection, to ask some questions, to understand the client and make them feel seen before they launched into slides full of data. And what I've noted is you're not going to win the business often if you just rely on how smart you are. People like to do business with people who they like and trust. So really focusing, you've got to know your stuff, but man, work on that EQ, because life is relationship. And if you go to the next slide, one of the things that I think is a strength of this company, these are my female partners here at Colliers, and very few of the big commercial real estate firms have women owners and women partners. But I will tell you, this group of women, they understand EQ, they understand relationships, and they pause to connect before diving into content. So it's really relationship driven versus action driven. Because in any business, if you think about our biggest client, there are 10 other companies calling on that client every day saying, give us your business. What you want to do is you want to be their guy. You want to be their girl, so that when the competitors call, they say, gosh, no, Janet Miller is my girl. I would never do business with anybody but that. And to me, the way you get that coveted position with clients is by making the EQ personal connections and being competent. You've got to have both. But if you're missing the EQ piece of it, you're rarely going to get to that place where a client says, don't call me. That's my group. So let's go on to theme number 3. And this one is practice radical candor. And I have said this in virtually every speech I've made over the last 10 years. If you haven't read it, go pick up this book. It is by Kim Scott, and it is about leadership styles and how you handle situations. And the premise is, and you can go over to the next slide, which sort of lays out the core of the book, which is to be a really, really great, empathetic, strong, effective leader. You want to care enough about the person that you're speaking with to be direct and honest with them. And so I keep this on my desk. I've had it there for 10 years. And anytime I have to have a difficult discussion, I tell myself, be in the upper right quadrant, because you care about this person. And my friend Jessica Averbush shared a comment with me last week, which is clarity is kind. And if you think about a lot of people, men and women, will just kick cans down the road because they don't want to have conversations. They don't want to hurt somebody. And the truth is, if you approach difficult conversations from the upper right quadrant, then you're probably going to end up with a good result. Now, as women, we're nurturers. We often slide over here to the left side, and that's ruinous empathy, which is, I care so much about you that I'm not going to be honest with you. And that is a really, really common thing, but it's not an effective way to be. And if you read this book, you'll see that she'll say obnoxious aggression, which is your lower right, which is basically, I don't care about you, so I'm just flat going to tell you like it is. In Ms. Scott's point of view, that's probably the second best, because at least you know where you stand. And then the bottom left is my least favorite, manipulative insincerity. This is where you're talking to somebody at a cocktail party and they're looking over your shoulder to see who they can talk to next. They don't care about you. They're not going to be direct with you. So of all the lessons, if you ever manage people, I would suggest read this book. And I try to live my life in the radical candor quadrant as a leader. Okay, theme number 4. Find your tribe. Leading can be really lonely, and it is just a fact. And I remember when I came to Colliers, I came out of a very team-based, collaborative environment at the Chamber of Commerce prior to this. And I'm managing 75 people, but 42 independent contractors who are basically running their own businesses, very independent, wired very differently from me. And it can be really lonely managing people who really aren't wired like you. So very early on, I learned I have to have my own kitchen cabinet and my own group of people that get me, who are like, I get you. So I've got a CEO group of 5 women. They call them masterminds group. I don't know how masterminds we are, but we meet every month and we are there to sound out the issues and to offer support. I have a mahjong group I play with. I have a hiking buddy that I work through all of my work issues on Sunday. So finding my tribe has made it much easier to be a solid leader at work, where not everybody is totally gets me or is in my tribe. And let's face it, they call it work for a reason. So we're not here to find our soulmate friends, but it is very important to find your tribe. And the next slide has to be everybody's favorite quote, which is, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And that's why I was so eager to speak to this group today, which is it's really important for all of us, if we're coming up in leadership roles, and certainly if we are in positions of authority, to really keep in mind how to help and give a hand up, mentorship, sponsorship for other women, because to me, it's who we are, and it's really, really important and fulfilling. The next slide, I would say to you, though, it's easy as women just to say, well, I'll just hang out with women. Don't overlook the other 50% of the population when you're looking for sponsors or mentors. The guy here on my right is Burt Matthews. He is my partner here at Colliers. He is a mentor to me. He is my friend, and he's here every day in the office. And there isn't a day that goes by where we don't sit in each other's offices, say, what can I do for you? What do you need today? And talk through issues. So having male mentors, and for me, particularly in this male-dominated industry, it's really important I understand the male point of view. So don't overlook the other 50% of the population. And then that cute guy on my left is my husband. So be sure and get your spouse's opinion. He is my greatest member of my tribe. And I'm just really, really lucky to have 2 such strong men in my life. All right, number 5. This is one that's going to be a lot of conversation about later on in the day. And it is strive for balance in life and show yourself grace. Grace is my favorite word in the entire human language. And this whole work and family thing, it is just harder for women. It is, because we are expected in many ways to keep both family and work balls equally balanced and perfect at all times. And to me, this theme, the grace part of it, is really, really important. And if you'll go to the next slide, many of you may know my friend Christy Wilson. She runs the Wilson Group, which is a residential real estate company. And when I came to Colliers, I'd never run a real estate company before. And I said, give me advice. Give me advice on running this company. And she said, there will be days when you feel like you are in the middle of the Titan Stadium all by yourself, and you are surrounded by hundreds of people who are just nonstop pounding you with paintballs. And everywhere where you turn, you're going to get hit by another paintball, another issue, another problem, something else to solve, somebody else's monkey. And she said, just know that you will have days like that and just accept it. There will be days that are just complete and total dumpster fires. And no, it comes with leading an organization, but there will be another day, the next. So on those days when I've just got a parade of people in my office handing me their problems and issues, it feels like that. But I also know, after doing this here for 8 years, to show myself grace, go home those evenings, get a nice glass of rosé, climb up in the tub, maybe exercise, clear my brain, and know that the next day is a new page. And then the last slide that I wanted to share with you is, I've always loved the term grit and grace. And this is how Meryl Streep, who I just think is amazing, puts it, which is, what does it take to be the first female anything? It takes grit and it takes grace. And I had an experience around this that really taught me that as a woman leader, you having grit and grace are the two greatest virtues that you can have. So about a year ago, I had a life-threatening pulmonary embolism. So I had a large blood clot that cut loose from behind my left knee and lodged in my lungs and heart. And it was life-threatening. It was scary. I was in the ICU for 5 or 6 days. I was away from this job for 6 weeks. And for those of you who know me at all, I am in my job. I mean, I'm in it. And it was the hardest thing for me. But what I learned is I had to have the grit to go and do the physical therapy, to regain the strength, and to really do the work, and to understand that my health was the only thing that mattered at that point in time. I also had to have the grace for myself to know that I couldn't run this office, that Bert took it from my hands and said, all that matters is your health. And for somebody who is as invested in their work as me, it took a lot of grace towards myself to say that was okay. And I remember the day I came back to the office, I came off the elevator bank and Bert was there. And I thought he was going to cry. And he said, I didn't think I'd ever see you come off that elevator again. And I knew it was okay. And that grit and grace is what got me through that. So if you don't have those two words taped up somewhere, to me, it's the perfect balance, particularly for female leaders, that you got to get in there and grind it out, but also show grace. And some days will be unbalanced. Some of them will be an unholy mess, as hard as you're trying for balance. But again, if you just have the grace with yourself to start anew the next day, then you're going to be just fine. So wrapping it up, those are my 5 themes. If you'll go to the next slide, which is do the work, understand who you really are, and then own it, be proud of it. Focus on EQ as well as IQ. I think it's equally or more important in many ways. Number 3 is practice radical candor. Being caring and direct is a really valuable leadership quality to foster. Number 4 is find your tribe, those people who get you, because you're not always going to have everybody in your work environment or whatever environment who get you, but you really need it for your own mental health. And then number 5 is you can strive really hard to balance your life and your work and all the other demands, but you are not going to be successful every day. And the key is to show yourself grace and forgiveness and begin again.
Hey, my friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.